I'll be honest, I hadn't come across Storyline until you could say you broke the internet, so to speak. Madav, appreciate you joining us this month. Obviously, massively appreciate your giving up your time, and obviously good to connect. But yeah, to kick things off, obviously, I guess could you give us a quick intro to Storylane? What's your role there? What it's all about?
Sure, yeah. I run marketing at Storyline, and Storyline is a AI native demo automation platform. So it's sort of like an interactive way to educate your buyers about your product. It's sort of a new category, like sort of emerged 3 years ago, very fast growing. We're one of the top players in this space. So yeah, and I've been in B2B SaaS for almost 15 years now.
Very cool, very cool. So yeah, appreciate the overview. I'll be honest, I hadn't come across Storyline until I guess it's fair to say I came across your profile on LinkedIn because you could say you broke the internet, so to speak. I think I mean, the LinkedIn post you put out, I think it's got a lot of traction since, and thousands of comments and views and messages. I'm sure bombarded probably with salespeople trying to pitch to you now with all your services. But I think for anyone, I'll put a link in this podcast. But for anyone who hasn't seen it, really cleverly, you broke down your exact marketing spend on every channel, every dollar. I guess what led you to do that, and what's the yeah? Talk us through it.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I've just generally I was so sick of like on LinkedIn, there's like, and especially with like AI and everything, there's just a lot of people that are just talking about, hey, we had 6x growth and 5x growth in the last quarter. And like generally good marketers just felt like they just weren't doing good enough, right? While these were all just sort of inflated numbers by people. Like when I actually got on to calls with these people, I realized that, oh my God, it's like they went from like 50K to like, I don't know, 250K ARR, and that's like 5x growth, right? And it's very different from 2 million to 10 million. So it's actually, and so I think context matters a lot in this age. And I just had a conversation with my CEO. I'm like, listen, I want to make our marketing budget public. And honestly, everybody has great ideas. Execution is what matters. So we're fine if competitors want to sort of copy it. It's okay. So he was completely fine. So we've been pretty transparent. We've anyway share our revenue, we share our entire marketing strategy, everything. So why not? Like, let's just do the budget breakdown. I just put it out. It was just random, and then yeah, I was just so surprised how well people sort of appreciated like the breakdown. Like, I think there's a general lack of transparency around marketing leaders. Like, we're not sharing our budget breakdown because of whatever reasons. But then also, what I realized was the split that we had in our budget was actually pretty modern,
Mm.
which I didn't know. That was the feedback I got, right? So that was also a good validation exercise for me.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, there's so many people claim big claims or impressive growth, but they never very rarely go into the nitty gritty of how you got there, how it works. And I think you literally went down. We've got £3 million budget. This is it's 200 grand here, 300 grand here, 500 grand at X. So I guess taking a step back, obviously you've been in marketing for years, like you mentioned, seasons, across many companies. How do you go about for anyone maybe is only running one channel currently or two channels and thinking about other channels? How do you go about determining how to break down your budget or where to spend that money?
Sure. Yeah. So, I mean, the first thing I always do whenever I join a company is I, I basically, I love mind mapping. So I just do a mind map and I just sort of put like, where do our ICPs sort of hang out? So I literally sort of have like this massive mind map where like, okay, these are literally every potential place where, they could be. And then, I sort of start attaching channels to them, right? So for example, okay, maybe like we sell to like marketing, sales, pre-sales. So let's say marketers, right? Like, they hang out on LinkedIn, they hang out on events, they're, at Google searching for stuff, they're on YouTube, whatever, searching for tutorials. They're meeting people in person, one on one. So it's sort of like that. And then those meeting points sort of branch out into like what are the channels where we sort of fit there, right? So events or like whatever conferences, right? Peer-to-peer conversations or perhaps communities and
Mm.
Google is ads and SEO and all of that, right? So that's how I also did that even at Storyline, right? Like when I came in, I sort of mapped it out. And like the conversation, my CEO was like, listen, we are at 2 million ARR. Can you get us to like 10 million? And what is the path there? And it was just like, yeah. So for me here, it was slightly unique. It's actually pretty common in organizations that when I sort of came in, there was already some sort of marketing which was run by the CEO. So instead of one or two channels, there were actually like 20 different channels that were running, but
Okay.
none of them with dedicated focus. And it was just like sort of a mishmash, like, go all wide. But, it got them some sort of early understanding that, okay, marketing is worth investing in. And then what I did was I always look at the I sort of think of it like a portfolio and like how am I inheriting it? And basically like all of these channels are like my stocks in the portfolio, right? And basically, let's say for example, I've been hired to like storyline will do well, even if I'm not there, basically. Like there's a virality component to it. But what sort of incremental growth can I add? So as
Mm.
a as a like a fund manager, like what how can I drive the incremental growth? So for me, I have to identify what are sort of the channels or the funds in my portfolio that basically have a potential for like really high sort of investment with continuing sort of set of returns or like actually better. And then also like which are like most profitable, and also like the portfolio depends a lot on like what the CEO's risk profile is, right? Some are more bootstrapped, some are more funding heavy, some are more like let's go aggressive like in the first year and then sort of do that. So it tweaks to that. And then through that, I find the portfolio. So in here it was like I started looking, SEO is not something that was looking very promising. So I sort of slashed that down a little bit. But then I
Okay.
knew influencers was something that was growing. So, we sort of increased the investment. And then it's just like you keep putting in money. If it continues to give the same results, you keep expanding on it. And like it gives you some conviction that, okay, these are the sort of, leading ones that will sort of lead the budget this year. And these are the channels that like sort of might make way for these leading ones.
Yeah, it's super interesting, and obviously I'm assuming it. You seem just the way you talk about analyze it like stocks and investments and portfolios. Obviously, you're taking a very analytical approach to it. Did you? Obviously this is your spend you're currently spending based on, like you said, trial and error, what's working, what's not, dialing things up and down. Do you tend to start with one channel, one tactic, get that right, and then compound and layer on top, or you just go in multiple tests, multiple channels, and just try and everything?
No, no, no. I for sure like I gotta start with one. Usually I would like even here like I the first thing so I come from a performance marketing background and then sort of
Okay.
took on creative work. So I obviously took performance marketing as the first thing. So SEO and ads was the thing that I knew that I could drive a lot of results in. So I took that and I just sort of looked at like, okay, what have they done? What's the team like? And like, what's the strategy? And like, can it sort of scale from here? And then sort of tweaked a couple of things and then sort of had some realizations, right? But then one channel, led to the next. So like there were also early signs that we were driving about 30% of our revenue from LinkedIn, like
Mm.
and our brand presence there and all. So I was like, okay, this is an interesting one. Once SEO was sort of done and was in safe hands, like, I had a dedicated person sort of working on that strategy. I sort of shifted focus to influencer program, right? Tried to figure it out myself, worked with an agency, had one of my team members also sort of try it. And that sort of, gave amazing results. So we sort of doubled down on it. It was just, yeah, I think it was sequential trial and error, but one luxury that you get as you sort of scale as a company is right now my marketing team is about 8 people right now. So
Okay.
it allows you to run a number of parallel channels side to side.
Yeah.
And you can like test and iterate parallelly quite a few.
And something you just mentioned there is quite interesting. You mentioned influencer marketing, was working for you, and I think I remember you're spending like 400-500K on, you spend a significant amount on influence marketing. It's a fairly new category, new channel. What's working there? What did you find that's hitting the spot?
Yeah, so the influencer program came from the realization that um, search results were just super spammy these days. Everybody, like every
Yeah.
company was ranking and all that. And so I was seeing a lot of people buying from people, like they were asking for recommendations in communities and they were seeing a tool sort of surface from their favorite creator and they were actually trying that. And that was like sort of like an emerging trend, like with how buyers were sort of discovering software. So that was the hypothesis, and I knew some brands were doing fairly well. And in B2B, obviously, influencers is relatively new. So we
Yeah.
tried it with a couple, and I think the goal was that, okay, can we get a good creative that we can run on ads? So we tried with a few, and those ads were just performing insane because they loved like the influencer content, because it came from like somebody they liked, right? And then so that sort of gave me the conviction that, okay, how about from three influencers, let's do six, right? And then let's start sort of looking at the CPMs for it, right? And I think we scaled it. Like right now, we have almost about 15 influencers sort of
Oh,
working for
wow.
us, and we are sort of, yeah, scaling quite fast on that one. But the CPM is like $30, and for comparison, like LinkedIn thought leadership ads, no matter how best you optimize them, you can't go below 57, at least in our category, like 55 to 60. So this is like half of LinkedIn thought leadership ads. Has amazing engagement. We see influencers pop up as a source in the demo request forms and as well, right? So there were some early signs. Okay, then it's working. And then our influencer strategy is very like sort of we basically work with two sort of influencers. One is more humor focused. I've seen like humor works really well for you to go sort of really wide.
Yeah.
They call edutainment. So we actually work with a bunch of fantastic people in the UK as well. Like Tom Boston is one of them. Absolutely love him.
Yeah.
He's a storyline influencer, right? So we're able to reach, like, I think one of the campaigns got like 1.7 million views or something. So
Wow.
it did pretty amazing. And then the second category is subject matter experts, storyline customers, and these are people that are building like very deep bottom of the funnel playbooks with, our product. So this is more for like more bottom of the funnel education. This is more talking about the different use cases of interactive demos with storyline and, a bunch of things. And we feel like with that width and depth is a good fit because we are able to reach a wide audience, but also are able to convert some of that demand. That's been our strategy so far. And it's worked fairly well. It's given me like the early numbers gave me the conviction and also a solid business case to my CEO that, listen, let's spend 500,000 on influencers this year.
Oh, wow. Yeah, no, it sounds like, yeah. So it's interesting that obviously, that you're doubling the amount of spend on influencers versus SEO, and obviously some of the I don't say legacy, but traditional tactics that people would see as good value for money, which is an interesting take, particularly in like you said, particularly in the B2B landscape. I think is very different because I
Yeah,
agree there's some great people out there, but I think it's still got a bit of time to catch up the B2B influencer world versus B2C brands and social influencers and the likes. Um, so one of the other things I'm keen to talk about, you mentioned, I'm just reading about outbound. Obviously, this is the B2B outbound pod. Punch, we're an outbound agency, so we're very much focused on outbound as a tactic. You mentioned, I think, on one of your posts around like you had to, fix a leaking pipeline, and outbound was an old inherited channel that you've made profitable and turned around. Outbound specifically, what's the biggest challenge you faced, or biggest thing you've biggest transformation you've made?
sure. Yeah. So there might be things that I might sort of mention in here that you might have to cut out from the podcast episode or whatever.
No
But I'll
worries.
just the honest take, right? So yeah, so Outbound was owned by sales. It
Okay.
started, and we had like we were working with agencies and in-house folks and all of that. But I think it just wasn't working really well. It wasn't profitable, that I know for sure. And then there were some early signs that, I talked to a couple of like my peers, and like I saw this trend that, okay, maybe outbound actually better fits in marketing. And I think about in November last year, we took that decision that
Okay.
outbound is going to report into marketing. Primarily because outbound is basically generating demand, right, for the product. So like it made more sense for it to sit under marketing because it becomes another channel that you're sort of looking at versus like having sales sort of do it. So that's what we did. First, we brought on outbound under marketing. The second thing we did was we sort of realized that if we were just going very heavy on like the meetings booked as a KPI only, it was not getting great results because it was like when you're just so focused on that, your messaging starts to corrupt a little bit. Even the like the way you sort of reach to people and all, like it just we tried with agencies, we tried with in-house folks. It was just like because there are like targets set on your head, it just sort of starts breaking.
Yeah.
So we changed things around a little bit with outbound in the sense that it had to be more demand gen focused. So basically, if I could put it outbound led inbound basically, right? Like use outbound to get people to the website. And then basically we have like a flywheel going there. So anybody who visits our website, we have like these website de-anonymization tools, right? So we use Vector and RB2B and then we have, all of them sort of populating like a clay table. And then we add like certain sort of signals and insights into it, like, have they
Yeah.
changed their job? Did they visit like our support website, like a bunch of things, and then through that there's like like I don't know, well, maybe like 50 plus campaigns that are going on, and then what we also did was we sort of split outbound into two parts. We work with an outbound agency. It's an AI SDR agency,
Yep.
and what they basically sort of um, what we realized, what which is super funny, is that actually AI SDR agencies are actually writing honestly better emails than the actual SDRs themselves, which is really, really surprising to me because it was just like they were so contextually relevant. They just had such great, like very real copy and all that. That was actually driving better results, right? So they're focused on that traditional sort of outbound where you're just sort of sending them emails and they're sort of obviously like yeah, more sort of like, okay, if this person sort of changed the job, they'll send like a contextually relevant email. But then we also have internally our own sort of outbound team. What they basically do is sort of connect with a bunch of folks that are coming in through like our clay table, right? And then, be very active on LinkedIn, right? In the
Yeah.
sense like posting stuff and all that, right? Messaging them. So they might get an inbound message or they may send outbound messages just to sort of connect, right? Again, this is not only focused on meetings booked. Meetings booked is a great outcome overall as a channel, as a quarter, but it's more around how do we generate more demand for Storyline. And within this also, like this whole like clay table, right? It's not just people visiting our website, it's also people currently in the pipeline, right? So
Yeah.
there might be people that might be in a qualified reconnect, or there might be people that are in like sort of close lost or whatever, right? We have specific campaigns running for them, which is also doing pretty well. So I think it was just over time we just started doing a bunch of campaigns, and there are like these 3, 4 campaigns that emerged that actually made the channel profitable for us, and we're actually pretty lean with the outbound team right now.
That's cool. No, no, it's super interesting. I think there's a lot of, I think particularly in the sales world right now, there's a lot of mismatched KPIs. Everyone's focused on meetings booked, meetings sat, and not a lot of people are talking about the value of building pipeline, building brand awareness, nurturing these leads, and just kind of, like you said, outreach has so much other value than just meetings. And I think that's probably your marketing's perspective on it versus a sales leader. I mean, I get it time and time again. Obviously, it's working for you, but generally, would you say sales teams should report into marketing over sales?
So I don't think the sales team sure. I'm like outbound for sure.
Okay.
Particularly anything that's like sort of yeah, I mean like outbound 100% should come into, because I mean I've made my perspective very clear. It is a channel to generate demand.
Yeah.
So if you're gonna do that, it better sort of come from a marketing lens. But I think beyond like the post sort of demo should 100% be the sales, and I don't think that should be under marketing. I mean, sure, it can be under a revenue team, but not under marketing.
Yeah, that makes sense. And interestingly, I guess not to challenge your point because you're seeing huge success from it, but I think what I'm hearing a bit in the market at the moment, the rise of AI SDRs. You're right. They're great. They can personalize context. They can contextualize, rationalize, and personalize outreach, digital outreach, very, very efficiently. But I think the challenge then becomes is everyone's using it. Digital's become really, really noisy. Inboxes are getting, crammed. I think one of your posts I saw somewhere else or a podcast with you on before is you're talking about your strength as a marketer about doing things that are creative. It's standing out, doing marketing that's disruptive. You know, with the rise of so much AI content and email generation and personalization, it's really really noisy. What are you doing? Like, what's different or what's unconventional that you guys are doing at the moment to stand out?
Yeah. So we have this term internally in our team. I mean, like, I don't know if you've come across this term called pattern interrupts. Like, it just sort
Yeah.
of, yeah. So we sort of treat our entire marketing sort of like the way we sort of do it. Like, if we want to stand out, we take a more pattern interrupt approach,
Okay.
right? Like, what are sort of patterns that we can sort of break, right? So right now, I'll tell you. So within outbound, right? Like the first thing is, um, usually people expect like an email, right? So by the way, just to sort of come back to your point for for a brief second about AI STR sort of obviously doing that. So we don't like it's not 100% AI SDR. It's like AI SDR sort of reviewed by a human, right? So
Okay. Cool. Yeah.
it's a human in the loop for sure. But yeah, it's more like we sort of treat a particular campaign as like for example, job change, like somebody who's a previous Storyline customer who switched an organization, right? We send them an email and all that. It doesn't like even if it's like contextually rich and all, it ends up working fairly well. So it's just also identifying which are those segments that might work really well. There's a whole conversation that can happen there, but like I don't want to digress from here. But then coming back to the pattern interrupt marketing, I think it's more like so for example, for outbound, one of the things that we did was um, we said that instead of sending an email, why don't we perhaps just send them sort of like, hey, I created a quick interactive demo about your product. Here's the demo. That's it. And that's just a one line ad.
Cool.
And then, just like add like a GIF in there. And then if they want a link, then we add it in like a second email, right? It was just supposed to be a pattern interrupt. Like, let's just send them the product that they can just try inside their email itself, right? And see how that works, right? And that campaign actually did great. We internally called it like demo-led outbound, right? Like they were just like, oh, this is so cool. It wasn't scalable in the sense like we had to create demos for every customer.
Yeah.
But in this day and age, like, it's actually good if things don't scale, right? Like, I mean,
Yeah, that's what you need to do. Even it's almost hyper personalized it rather than just the top and tail, the lines or the context from the website. You've gone above and beyond and given them value, which they haven't asked for, but it's providing that value without a comeback.
correct. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, it's just that, right? Like, so how do you break an interrupt? Like most people would get like like a standard email that perhaps an AISD would ever do it. How do you break that pattern, right? Or like for example, from a follow up, right? Like what we do is like we've been creating like these AI, like we've been using all of these Chat GPT image generation and all, and like my marketing designer is one of the most brilliant people in the world. And what he does is he takes these concepts and then creates like these AI art, which looks like movie poster quality. And
Okay,
then we
cool.
use that, for follow up, right? Like, hey, just thought you'd find this funny, right? And it just like it's just like how do you send something that's unexpected, right? So that's from an outbound perspective. But even within, like, for example, across the marketing, right? Like we're trying to break patterns everywhere, right? Like, and there's like thousands of them. If you look at it that way, it's just there's an endless amount of ideas. Like for example, at events, we don't like. I mean, there was a couple of events where we didn't actually set up a booth. We just set up a coffee station, and that
Hmm.
just did insanely well. At one place where like instead of webinars, we sort of replaced that with like a the office style Dundee show, right, which was called the Demo Dundies, and that performed really well. I'm not saying every experiment did well, but I would say like just that whole pattern interrupt thing just allows us to stand out very easily. Even on the website, just using more bolder colors that you wouldn't sort of expect on a regular SaaS website, works really well for us. So it's just that sort of, and then we've built that culture into our marketing team, and it's giving great results, I would say.
Yeah, it's super interesting. I haven't heard that. Yeah, we all know about pattern interrupts, but I think having that lens on everything you do is a really unique take on it. Kind of how can we disrupt and interrupt the norm? Because people are using gifts, people are doing booths, people are doing all this stuff, but it's again that one step above and beyond, which is interesting. as I mentioned, look, it's a super interesting post. Like you've got loads of comments on it, people saying how valuable it was, how insightful, how honest it was to kind of break it down. Obviously, big growth plans, big ambitions as a business. What's next for you over the next 12, 18 months? More of the same or any big bets, kind of any big shifts in what you're doing?
Um, I mean, I wouldn't say, yeah, I think there's like a couple of things that we're sort of thinking about. One is just around the whole generative engine optimization. There's like a lot of like, we're building out the playbook for it. We're getting quite a lot of traffic from like these AI search engines, and like Google Analytics now gives you that data. But now we're just trying to figure out like, can we own some of that? Because like with
Yeah.
AI, what we've seen is just like, if you invest in brand, you get more citations. So for sure, you'll do well, but can you do more than that? So we're thinking a lot around like this whole LLM SEO or generative engine optimization, or whatever you call that. That's a little bit of a focus right now. I think the other thing also is we're starting to realize a lot that just like in-person conversations are working fantastic just for closing deals. So we've been investing a lot heavily onto like these smaller dinners, like 20, 25 people in a
Yeah.
room. That's been doing really, really well, and we're sort of scaling that playbook. And I think last thing I would also say is we're investing quite heavily in customer marketing, in the sense that, like I said earlier, right? Like people are buying from people. There's like a whole peer-to-peer interaction happening these days. So how can we use our own existing customers to get more customers? How do we
Yeah.
use our existing customers to expand their accounts? So like there's a bunch of initiatives and work that are going in there. These are three areas that sort of look pretty promising over the next 12 to 18 months.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think I agree. I think from a lot of people I speak to, again, mainly in the sales revenue space, I think a lot of them have said, there's obviously a huge rise of AI SDRs and content and creative and digital, but it's become very very noisy. Uh, but a lot of people are starting to crave that human interaction. Events are on the rise again. Small social circles and your influence of people you know and trust. So actually, not big conferences, but small roundtables, small events of communities. I think will be a big thing for personally. Something we're seeing over the next kind of 12 or 18 months is a big shift as well. So yeah, super
100%.
super interesting. But yeah, obviously, Madab, massively appreciate your time. Obviously, appreciate you coming on and sharing it as well. I know, I'm sure, like I said, you got a lot of comments, a lot of messages. You've been responding to everyone, but yeah, I just it resonated with us just because we're always looking at where best to spend marketing budgets. Everyone's got a finite resource, so kind of hedging your bets to where to place it is super important. So I appreciate you sharing that post.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.